Welcome back, everybody. Let's continue. So I had a few more slides. So remember where we were. We managed to pull a rabbit out of the hat and end up with exactly the vector space model and the justification for the inverted document frequency. But in order to do that, we had to make absolutely outrageous assumptions, like simplification and so on. So if we do simplify, then indeed we arrive at the IDF. Now, of course, what happens when you make assumptions is that the community with critical thinking questions them and asks, okay, can we improve? Can we just give up this assumption, try another assumption? So now I would like to focus on a discussion for this assumption. When you assume that the odds that a term appears in a document that is relevant would be 1, meaning that the probabilities are 1/2, 1/2. If we question that and instead we try to estimate this pk, so S and S minus S in terms of statistic, I said, so you can use machine learning, but you can also use crowdsourcing, like use actual people. And there is a way that's called OCAPI BM25. That's called relevance feedback. The idea is that you ask people. So what you do is that you put some PKs in there. Maybe you can start with 1/2. That could be a way to start with. But if you try to improve, what you do is that you have a query, a user inputs a query in the system. Then you execute the query using the current value for PK, right? Might be 1/2 at first. And then you can evaluate the scores using that value of PK, right? Summing over the CKs. Then you return the results to the user. And now you ask the user to do a bit of extra work. You ask the user to mark every one of the documents as, yes, this is relevant, or no, this is not relevant. You basically ask the user to pretend to be a little elf, right? And mark the documents as relevant or not. So it means that your user is basically putting the documents in 2 boxes. There's the relevant documents on the left and the non-relevant documents on the right, right? Called VR and VNR. Don't know what the V is for, maybe very relevant or very non-relevant. I don't know. But this is basically the idea. You classify them. And the next thing you do is that you focus on the relevant ones. Because remember that what we want to estimate, what we're interested in is the first row of that table, right? So this is the relevance documents. So what we do is that we drop the non-relevant part that is on the right. That would be the UK, but we want to focus on PK. Now, how can we estimate PK in a better way? We look at these documents marked as relevant, and we count how many contain term K, how many do not contain term K. We do it for every term, right? And when we compute this, it's a simple division, right? It's the number of those that contain term K divided by the total number of relevant documents. That gives us a new estimate of PK. And then we just do this division right here, right? You can also smooth. Remember smoothing? What you can do to smooth is just to add a 1/2 on both sides. So it means 1/2 here and 1 below, right? Who's with me that this is how you smooth? Okay, so you smooth a little bit. You can also use Bayesian updating, meaning that for smoothing, instead of the 1/2, you can use the previous estimate, right? So it's a little bit like some Kalman filter, if you've seen that, gives you a bit of inertia in the way that it works, right? That's Bayesian based. So PKS would be the prior and PKS plus 1 would be the posterior, but I'm not going into details. So once you have updated the posteriors, you basically have a new version S plus 1, and then you continue to iterate. So you basically use your users in order to improve your system. This is called OCAPI. And what it does, again, is that instead of the 1/2, 1/2, you have better estimates that are based on what the users are doing, right? Again, it's the idea that instead of having the facility with all the elves, you ask actual people to do it, but for very specific documents and in an approximated fashion. Are there any questions on this? Anything that is unclear? Anybody who wants to complain about an assumption that is outrageous? So who is with me or understood the overall story with how we started with the elves and then ended up with the power of mathematics not needing the elves? Who understands that? Right? Okay. Who understands how we came back to the inverted document frequency? Right? Okay. So this is awesome, right? Because now we've shown that probabilistic information retrieval justifies, we can tell a story, the use of the inverted document frequency in the evidence accumulation in the cosine scores. There's still the open question, how do we justify the term frequency, right? But now we just have the justification for the IDF. Okay, if there are no questions, I will move on to the next one. So I'll see you on the other side.